Hey, what's up everybody? This is Isaiah for Therapy Today. Today we are reacting to another Ren track. Now you all have been commenting and asking me to react to different parts of his discography, different parts of his story, and obviously I can't get to it all right away, but this is one that really jumped out at me as people were talking about the relationship between the mental and physical for him in terms of his health journey and the challenges that he's had with the interplay between mental health and physical health, and he explores some of that in his track. I know I've listened to this track before when I first started getting into his music. I have not watched it since then, so this is kind of a rewatch, but also not really. I'm sure there are going to be fresh things that jump out at me. I had the chance to review some of the lyrics beforehand so I can try to keep up with the narrative and what he's talking about. But yeah, this track, Sick Boi, really hits on a lot of the challenges that I see in the field of psychiatry. I'm not a psychiatrist myself, but I have worked in close proximity with them, gotten some of their thoughts on mental illness and their role in treating certain mental illnesses, as well as just the interplay between how our physical conditions can affect our mental conditions, as well as vice versa. And so I think one of the challenges that we see explored in this video, if I'm coming from a mental health perspective, being a mental health professional, I tend to see things from that perspective, see things being caused in that way. Whereas a doctor who's mostly focused on the body may see things as coming from a physical standpoint affecting the mental. And so we'll get into this more as we go through the track itself. But I think what's going to come up is that he was getting shuttled in between different types of practitioners who saw different causes and provided different treatments based on that, and him being the guinea pig in between for all of their experiments, as it probably felt like for him. So as we get into this track, I will encourage you to like and subscribe. This helps our channel to grow and continue making content for you all. For the final days of this month of May 2024, we are still in Mental Health Awareness Month, so I am encouraging all of my viewers to donate to a mental health nonprofit. Go ahead and DM me your receipt after you donate, and once I've got your receipt, I'll enter you into a giveaway for some prizes at the end of this month. So you have a couple more days to get that in before we do our final drawing for this month. So with all that being said, let's dive into this track, Sick Boi by Ren.
Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for seeing me.
Ooh, I love that transition right away from that really exaggerated heavy breathing. A lot of that clues me into what his physical and mental state, at least what it felt like for him, being really in a crisis state. And then I see this a lot in my clients too. They'll have had a really rough week or have had a really rough life, and you saw that switch flip as soon as the professional in the room started talking to him. He flips into talking normally. And whether it is chronic illness, whether you're talking about physical illness or a mental illness, there is some stigma about it where we still want to present as whatever we might think of as normal. We don't want people to think we're weird or crazy or there's something wrong with us. And so I see this switch flip in my clients a lot. That for whatever reason, they want to present a certain way to me. And it's something I have to keep in mind as I'm working with clients, that they might present calmly during a session like he's doing right now, but also keeping in mind that's important for me to dig deeper sometimes because there may be more going on than just them looking like things are okay.
Your file here, it seems there's a very apparent interplay with your emotional state and your physical body. Have you ever heard of the trauma response?
I don't think so.
Basically, our bodies can get stuck in a negative feedback loop. Our subconscious can repeat patterns from the past, which can have a pretty drastic downstream effect on our biology.
So all of this explanation is not actually wrong. Yes, trauma response, when our mental health is affected to the point where we're in a perpetually stressed state, and I've talked about this in other Ren videos as well. Inflammation is a huge keyword for this now, and just talking about being in a stressed state where our body is constantly in fight or flight, and that has really negative ramifications if we don't find a way to flip the switch to be able to go into our rest and digest state, this interplay between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. So of course the tricky part is, one, having the knowledge, sure, like she's explaining that to him very professionally, very concisely too actually, but then being able to actually do something with that. And sometimes the something is medication to help our bodies to get in a relaxed state. Obviously there are some side effects to that, and obviously being just a licensed professional counselor, I don't have that option of prescribing drugs anyway. And so one of the ways that I go about trying to engage my clients in finding that place where they can rest and digest instead of being in fight or flight is through mindfulness that allows their body to recover. And of course, because he's dealing with the biological and physical cause of that stress state, when we're talking about inflammation throughout the body too, that makes it difficult for any one particular treatment to probably adequately take care of that kind of inflammation, that kind of stress response.
Essentially, your mind is making you sick.
One thing I want to talk about is this pig character. I know it's been mentioned in a lot of the comments. I don't know if the pig character actually has a name yet, but what it reminds me of is Professor Pig, which is a villain in the Batman series. And I think the archetype, whatever commonality or whether he drew inspiration from the Batman comics or not, which from his perspective, I think probably a lot of the doctor-patient relationships in his life felt exploitative, where they were experimenting on him, putting him on different medications, different treatments, and nothing was working, and it felt like he was just being tested. And Professor Pig in the Batman comics, if I remember right, was murdering people to harvest their parts and create the perfect person. And so the idea is behind the exploitative care in the medical system that he probably experienced, and I think for people who have chronic illnesses, who struggle with that, those that are not easily diagnosed and also not easily treatable, that it can feel like you're just being shuttled from one doctor to another, getting testing done, you're just being experimented on, trying different drugs. And that's one thing that's very difficult for my clients who struggle with chronic illnesses, is because they have to have this period where they get the medication to their systems, they're dealing with new side effects every couple of months, and then things just don't seem to ever get better. And at the end, they don't even know what their original symptoms are because they're on so many different kinds of medications that their body's adjusting to, that there's no time to really recover and ever feel like themselves.
Sick boy, bitten by a tick boy, looking for that fix boy, anabolic steroids, damn so, poster boy, pass out, white noise, quick fix, snake oil, I'm about to break boy. Oh, what a shame, he's in pain, have another go, take another pill, here, take a couple more, let's see how you're doing in another week or so.
That's really tough, and that's also a really interesting artistic choice, going from her original voice to Ren's voice being lip-synced by this character. Unfortunately, I have heard too many of my clients, and this is again in the psychiatric field, but who deal with psychiatrists, who have these 10-15-minute appointments with them, say, oh, okay, this isn't working here, take more, or try this medicine instead of really hearing their stories and being able to figure out what's going on with their condition. And I'm not saying that all psychiatrists are like this. I know a couple of really good ones who are really careful about their prescriptions and who do take the time to listen to their patients, but it is also difficult in our kind of managed care setting because in order to maximize your profit, you also have to see a lot of clients, and that's where you get into that difficulty between, it can feel kind of exploitative, where you're just seeing the doctor for a couple of minutes and you're trying to sum up all of your symptoms and your reactions to these medications into a couple of minutes, and then they write some notes, give you a new prescription, and you're on your way. And if you're on a good system, if you're on a good regimen of medications that works with you, that model works just fine. But if you're trying to find something that actually works for you and nothing's really clicked yet, that can feel really challenging and really frustrating. And the deal with his voice being dubbed over her character, I wonder if it's a choice, recognizing that maybe it was his own doubts, maybe his own perception of medical professionals that made it sound like it was just them being that distant and just pushing more meds on him. And maybe that's his concession to saying, okay, maybe that was just my perspective, but that's really how it felt for me. Because there is a very clear transition between how she was talking in the beginning with her actual voice versus his voice being dubbed over.
You'll be feeling worse when the side effects will show. Derealization, medical patient, losing patience with the process, walking hand in hand with Satan, complications with the medication, inflammation, dehydration, inhalation, aggravation, building up a toleration. Drown, soccer, drown, soccer, drown, soccer, drown. I've been feeling like I'm drowning with my feet upon the ground. I've been screaming, I've been shouting, but I never make a sound. I've been looking for a way out, but I always seem to drown.
Is this all making sense, Ren?
Yeah, I think so.
Good. What I propose we do is we try to pinpoint the exact experiences from the past that are keeping you stuck.
So now you add this kind of visual layer where you see the pig character superimposed over her. And so I think there is something about him wrestling with this idea of this love-hate relationship with the medical system, where maybe while he was really in the thick of struggling with his conditions, that it really felt like he was in a tug of war with the medical field to be able to get answers, to be able to get the proper treatment. And like he said, listing all these different types of experimental treatments that he was going through, and probably had a lot of negative side effects for him and just a lot of challenges along that journey. But maybe there's also the push and pull of him recognizing that without some of these professionals, he might not be around right now. And that can be a really hard reality to struggle with. I have a lot of clients who have been in relationships with therapists or with doctors who they were not happy with, but in the end they said, we'll just keep going because it's better than nothing. And I feel like that's the kind of tug of war that he's wrestling with in this song. I think as he talks about drowning and nobody hearing him, that the medical profession has suffered a lot in its credibility, especially since the opioid epidemic had really started hitting news, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic, that people are a lot more skeptical of doctors now and the ways in which medicine was practiced, and feeling like they were not heard. And I think that's why there's a huge uptick in therapy, where the point of therapy is to be heard. And again, that's not to say that counselors and therapists are perfect at that. I've heard stories where people didn't feel heard in their therapy sessions, where they felt like their therapist was just talking about themselves and not listening to the client. But this is where there can be a balance between the time-intensive, very involved process of therapy in combination with the medicine that can lead to better results for some people.
Can you tell me about your childhood?
I can't really think.
It's okay if nothing comes up right away. What I'd like you to do is take some deep breaths with me. In and out.
Okay, before we get to the breathing, I want to talk about the trauma perspective here. I think this is where this can get frustrating for some of my clients, because I come from not a medical background, but from a counseling background. So I'm looking at the psychological and mental health perspectives of this. And so I'm more likely to attribute issues with your mood, with your mental state, and even with your physical state to mental conditions like this person does with trauma. But if you have a physical condition, that may not be the right perspective to use. That might not be the right treatment to use. And so what she's doing with this mindful breathing and this breathing exercise might be well and good for someone who's dealing with trauma. But if that's not the primary issue for him, it might be helpful in the short term. It may have some benefits, but it won't actually get at what he's really dealing with.
In and out. Good. Now tell me the first thing that comes to your mind.
I feel like it's not me, it's the world that's sick. We're given everything we need and we commoditize it. We consume, we destroy like we're parasitic. Science tells us that it's suicide and still we commit. I'm not sick, we are sick. We are standing on a cliff in the name of progress. We jump off the precipice. I'm not sick, I'm the virus, you're the virus, hypocrite. How can you sit there with that smile on and tell me that I'm sick? Sick boy, looking for a fix, boy. Push it down in public, quick pose for the pick, boy. Record label meetings that commodify your gift, boy.
That's a huge transition, flipping the script and the narrative from him being the sick one to humanity being the disease. And he's talked about harmony with the earth before in some of his other videos. And so this gets more of an insight into kind of the bigger picture that he seems to be taking in terms of ecological harmony, a harmony between humans and the earth, and how we talk about maybe humans being exploitive of the earth. And there seems to be some kind of relationship and connection with his newfound fame also, how that might feel exploitative as people want something from him or are asking for things from him. From what I understand, can be very common for celebrities to have a bunch of people suddenly wanting your time, wanting your attention, wanting your support. So now I think the ideas are getting a little jumpier, so I'm not tracking the narrative as completely. Just give a better perspective of some of the ideas that he has, that he explores in this song, that's not just about him, but also about humanity's relationship with the earth, about his relationship with fans, which stems from his experience potentially of feeling taken advantage of by a medical system.
Why you so upset? Don't you wanna be a rich boy? Fuck no, industry is cutthroat. I've been doing bits by myself, swimming backstroke, walking on a tightrope, rapping with a slit throat. The way that we persist is like the ending of a bad joke. As the people We're complacent to assailants and we do what we're told. Counterintelligence, a sight to behold. Rape the earth of all resources and we bleed it for gold. And we bleed it for wealth, we bleed it for fame. But when you bleed it, can you tell me what the fuck will remain? And I bleed in myself, I bleed in my brain. While I'm bleeding, I'm the reason, cause I'm doing the same.
Love that bit of a punchline at the end where he twists into, am I doing the same? It's a fascinating exploration because he starts very externally focused with the pig character, with the interplay between his perception of the doctor and then the doctor's own portrayal. And it starts with him being the victim in all of this. And then as the narrative, as the song evolves, he starts looking inside and starts recognizing the ways that he might be part of the problem as well. And so, like with all of his music, I think Ren's got a lot of layers to this. I'm not going to be able to peel back all of that in one sitting and in one rewatch, but I think a lot of the issues that he hints at in terms of relationship between doctors, both medical professionals and mental health professionals, and I'm not just including psychiatrists in that also, but also therapists and counselors. It's important for us to recognize our own biases as we go in to see a client. And I recognize that because of my training, I'll see certain patterns and I need to be sure that I confirm that with my clients, asking them, does this explanation of things, does my conceptualization of your case make sense in terms of the timeline, what I think caused what and led to this and that, and the cascade of events? Because I might see a pattern where none actually exists, and it's up to the client to be able to know, because they're the ones who live their lives, whether or not that's actually the case. And so at least for me, that's a really powerful reminder from Ren's perspective, even if it wasn't directed at mental health professionals specifically, but that was kind of the context that he used to tell that story, and why it's a great reminder for me to always keep in mind that I need to be benefiting the client, I need to be checking in with them. Is what we're trying to do actually working for you, or are you just doing it because this is what I suggested as the professional in the room? So very cool music video. As always, I love the musicality of it, his performance in the music video, as well as the beat, of course, and his lyricism is always on point. So musically, I enjoy all of those things as well as the larger message in it. But as always, I appreciate you all giving your comments in the comment section below and letting me know what I should watch and react to next, as well as just what you got from this story. Like I said, this has so many facets to it that I'm sure every person with a different perspective is going to get something different from their watch of this video. So I'm curious to hear you all's perspectives. Go ahead and comment those below. As always, do make sure to like and subscribe. Like I said, that helps our channel to grow. And please do enter our giveaway, help raise awareness for mental health in this month, and maybe even win a prize at the end of the month along the way. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I'll see you all next time.